Good evening, everybody. It is the Safety and the Sportswriter show with Knoxville Nate and Big Joe coming in the back to talk to you about the world of sports. We got a little NCAA basketball to get over, a lot of football to go over, and a lot else in sports going on. Nate, how you doing?
I'm doing great, sir. How are you today?
Doing good, doing good. Looking forward to a good weekend, especially full of basketball. We got the conference championships going on. Some exciting games today. You know, Florida, Texas A&M, Duke, and Syracuse, as we talked about as we were coming on the air. One of my favorite days, one of my favorite weekends of the year, the conference championships, and of course we'll go to Selection Sunday and see who the bubble boys who get in and the bubble boys who stay home will be. And as we both talked about coming on, it was fun to watch Juwan Howard and his Michigan Wolverines blow a 17-point lead against Indiana. And it looks like they'll be one of the teams on the outside looking in, and rightfully so, but both record-wise and by the fact that they brought him back after that stupid 5-game suspension, which should have been much, much more.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing if this was the first time that this guy ever did anything like this, but as me and you discussed it at length, I mean, he did the same exact thing last year when he tried to go after the Maryland coach. And I think that was in the Big Ten tournament, actually. So, this is becoming a pattern. And, whether it was a punch or whether it was a slap or whether it was a karate move, it doesn't really matter. The guy's got a temper that's out of control. And, I'm not just saying this because I hate Michigan, because I will admit that I do hate them.
Yeah.
But this has nothing to do with that. I mean, it's just not a good look. And if this was anybody else but him, they would have already been fired or suspended for longer. So I think it was a little bit of karma that they relinquished a 17-point lead to Indiana and are done in the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, and it was nice for the Indiana. That program, which had been one of the big-time programs, has been struggling for a long time now. To get a big win in a tournament situation meant a lot to that program. So hopefully, maybe they can build a little bit off it. I don't think they can do much this year, but hopefully with their recruiting. And I like to see when Indiana. I'm a Big Ten fan, so I like to see when Indiana's good because they're one of the truly legendary programs there. And then, of course, we had a Duke game where your Dukies, for the last 10 minutes of the first half, looked shaky, but we're able to hold on and put it together and change up and adjust to that triangle and two that the Syracuse was playing against them. And, of course, Syracuse live by the three, die by the three. I mean, and they don't have a lot up front. They have the three scores and nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of figured this game was going to go down like this today, especially after they announced that Buddy Boeheim was going to be suspended for the game. I was like, well, they didn't really need any ammo to get fired up at Syracuse, who I'm talking about. I mean, they have to win. They basically had to win the ACC tournament to get into the NCAA. So they were going to be all in no matter what. We've already beat them twice badly. Duke being kicked their butts twice already with Buddy Boeheim. So I'm like, they're going to get fired up and they're going to give us a good run for our money. And they did. Gerard was 4 of 11 from 3. Jimmy Boeheim was 6 of 9 from 3. He had 28 points, really picked up the slack for his brother. But in the end, the good guys prevailed. And, we started out hot. Duke being, we played great and really started hitting some shots out of the gate. But we weren't getting the ball down low to Mark Williams. And I was like, if we don't start using the 7'1" guy who's one of the best players in the country, we're going to be in trouble. And I think that's what Coach K told him at halftime, because Mark Williams scored 15 points in the second half. He had 0 at halftime, but he put in 15 in the second half, and 16 rebounds he had, 3 blocks. He was dominant. And, Wendell Moore Jr., the senior, had 26 points. And Jeremy Roach chipped in 19 from the bench. So it was an effort from all the guys on the Duke team, kind of came out and really, wouldn't let this one go away. And I was happy to see them, get themselves under control in the second half and finish them off.
One thing that bothers me, and it's more aesthetic than anything else, is the fact that playing in Brooklyn,
Yeah.
The AC, it makes no sense. There's just nothing to it about. I mean, it's
There's
great
nothing.
for
There's nothing ACC about Brooklyn.
right. Exactly. It's just there's no reason to bring it to New York. You already got the Big East tournament in Madison Square Garden. I just feel sorry for it should be down in Carolina, some down down in one of the big arenas down in that area. I mean find
They used to have it in Greensboro a lot, and then they moved it to Charlotte, I think, one time, and then they played in Florida somewhere. I mean, I don't really care where it is, but Brooklyn, it just seems ridiculous to me. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
I mean, nobody's put it in the Atlanta football dome.
Yeah, I think they did have it in Atlanta maybe once, but yeah, put it in the Mercedes-Benz stadium, or anywhere but New York would make sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, it just looks funky. It looks like I don't get it. I really don't get it, but that's okay. And I, of course, just to touch on it, I own it now. Getting upset by Ryder, that's huge. And like we were talking about before we came on the air, these small conferences. I mean, I'm looking at Central Michigan today with 7 wins, almost upsetting Toledo.
Yeah,
and it's ridiculous that there's teams in these mid-major tournaments that won a third of their games. I mean, that could possibly be going to the tournament, and the 1 or 2 good teams they have in that conference staying home. I mean, you have to have a 500 or better record to make a conference tournament. It's bad enough what they do with high school ball. This is college ball. This is major college ball. And I'm sorry, you can't have teams with 7-23 records playing for the possibility to go to the big dance.
Yeah, it's something that they've talked about for years. Where these mid-major teams that have unbelievable seasons, and then they stumble maybe in the championship game, and then you've got a team that's 28-2 who doesn't get to go to the dance, and then the other team goes and gets their ass kicked, whereas that team could have been a good, could have put on a good game. But that's just the way they have it set up. And so I think these coaches and these teams really need to understand that and really need to focus. And I think they do. I think they try to at least focus on the tournament and make sure that they do everything they can to get ready and prepare themselves for tournament week.
Yeah, maybe they should just give up their conference tournaments. I mean, just to make sure the right teams go. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Maybe always send the guys that win the regular season, and then put the teams that are have the worst records do the play-in games. I mean, something like that would make sense to me.
Yeah. So, anyways, well, we will be talking about that for the next few weeks a lot. So let's get right into football, where today one of the best defensive players in football will now be moving his address to one of the nice, bright California cities to live in. Khalil Mack heading to the Chargers. The AFC West is not waiting around to make things happen this offseason, and Khalil Mack to the Chargers makes them big time. Yeah,
I mean, the question is, where's he at? I mean, that's a big question for me, is where is he at health wise? Because when he's healthy, he's been one of the most dominant defensive players. He missed a lot of games last year, and I think the Bears kind of learned to live without him. I mean, he only played in 7 games. I think he only had he had 6 sacks, which is pretty good, honestly, for playing in 7 games. 6 sacks. I mean, that's almost a sack a game. That's pretty solid. But, he only played in 7 games. And I think they're worried about him going forward. I think they realized last year when they played 9 games without him, and Robert Quinn set the all-time record for sacks in a season with 19 for the Bears, past Richard Dent. I think they realized they could probably potentially live without him, and they realize that they're not just one player away. I think that's right. I think that's the real thing that the Bears have realized. They've got to get better. on both sides of the ball. They need weapons. If they don't want to waste another quarterback. I mean,
Right.
Whether Mitch Trubisky is good or not, I think the jury is still out. But I think we've proven that no matter who the quarterback is, they've got to get better up front, and they've got to get the quarterback better weapons.
Right.
And so they're the only way to do that is to acquire capital. And they got a second and a sixth, which I think is an amazing price that the Chargers paid. I mean, I think this deal is definitely favored towards the Chargers. I mean, I don't know whether or not he's worth a first at this point, but I thought maybe a second and a third, second and a fourth, something like that. But a second and a sixth seems pretty light for a guy that still has some gas left in the tank.
And of course, the biggest the subject is always the quarterbacks, and we had some major movements, or a major signing. First of all, Aaron Rodgers signing that big contract. This guy is going to go down as one of the toughest guys to figure out if you like him, you hate him, or what. Because I think if you ask 75% of the people in this country, they hate him. I mean, he just is this arrogant guy, and you always wonder about him as like winning. Where does winning really stand with him? Yeah. I don't. He doesn't. He was lucky enough to win a Super Bowl early in his career, and basically, no matter what he kind of maybe says, it doesn't seem like winning's the biggest thing for him.
Yeah, he's a hard guy to figure out, and I kind of go back and forth on whether I like him or not. I was kind of excited. I wanted to see him go somewhere else and play on a different team, and then I could be like, wow, this is cool. Aaron Rodgers on the Broncos, or Aaron Rodgers on the Buccaneers, whoever. And I was going to be, the Saints. I was like, this could be kind of cool just to see him play, somewhere else. And then of course he, It to me, him going back there it basically solidifies the fact that all he was doing was trying to get more attention. I mean, he wasn't going to leave. He wasn't going to retire. All he was trying to do was get the publicity, get the focus, everything shifted right onto him. And that's what happened. So he not only got what he wanted, but then he got a new deal and a new extension and got more money. So he got more money and he got more attention. And that's really all this guy seems to crave or want.
And it's just, you see him on those commercials and he seems like, hey, that's a cool guy, actually, when he does those commercials. Or you see him being able to host Jeopardy, and that's pretty funny. You see there's certain things about him, you sit there and you go, he should be more likable. He's not stupid. He seems very intelligent. Like I said, he seems to have kind of a sense of humor, and on some of those Allstate commercials, it's self-deprecating humor and stuff. But I mean, then he does these kind of things, and you go, God, the arrogance. But then again, you watch him on the field, and you go, my God, how many quarterbacks have we ever seen that can do the things he could do? Not many.
He's very good. I mean, there's no doubt that he's good. But the thing is, you have to admit, for as good as he is, it's kind of been deflating what's happened in the playoffs. I mean, This guy's got one Super Bowl, which, winning one Super Bowl is hard. So you have to give him credit for getting it done and winning a Super Bowl. But that was 11 years ago?
Yeah.
10, 11 seasons ago. I mean, it's been a while, and they're so close. And to be honest, you have to, the year before when the Buccaneers beat them, or maybe the year before that, at least, when the Niners ran all over them, you could pin it on the defense. Last year, I don't know. The defense played pretty good in that game, but you could still say they needed to come up with that stop, on 4th and 3 or whatever it was, and they didn't. But this year, you couldn't put it on the defense, man. Their defense played amazing against the 49ers, and he could get nothing going. So, that loss, I put it on him. I really do. And he better get it together, because who knows how much time he's got left. It seemed like I believe they franchise tagged Devontae Adams, so they're at least going to have him for another year. But they're going to have to do a lot of finagling to keep the guys they want to keep and replace the guys they have to replace, because they're up against it cap-wise. and they've got a lot of spots to fill.
Yeah, and the other thing about it is too that he's had on his and it's not his fault. I mean, but playing in the division that his team plays in has been a favorable situation for him throughout his career.
Yeah, he's got 4 wins guaranteed every year. Two against the Bears, 2 against the Lions. There's 4 wins guaranteed, and most of the time they beat the Vikings too. So it's pretty much like, they get the division handed to them,
Right.
and they're automatically in the playoffs. But I will give him credit for winning 13 games a year. I mean that's difficult, and I'll give him credit the 2 years before getting to the NFC Championship. But I think, they need to do something, and they need to do it fast because he's not getting any younger. That's for damn sure.
Okay, the other big chip that fell this week, Russell Wilson, kind of a shock, kind of even though the rumors have been flying about him wanting out of Seattle, um, it's to sit there and watch Seattle give up on him, especially when you think Pete Carroll at this stage in his career, not looking to restart, rebuild, whatever. Also leaving behind the wide receivers that we talked about at length a couple of weeks ago. But Russell Wilson got out and he goes to Denver, and another big name going to the AFC West. That's going to make that the best conference or the best division in football. Your thoughts, first of all, when you heard Russell Wilson go, and I know you called me all excited, and tell the fans about what you thought when you heard Russell Wilson was going to the Rockies.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit surprised just about where he was going. I didn't there hadn't been any chatter about Wilson to the Broncos. I mean, it wasn't one of the teams that he listed when he was asked which teams he would waive his no trade clause for. So that's why it was a little bit surprising. But I'm not shocked that they moved him. I mean, he's been echoing that he's been unhappy there for 2 seasons now. And let's be honest, he hasn't really played that great. So, the Seahawks had to do something. Last year was kind of a disaster. They wanted to make a move, and they're kind of rebuilding. Now, I think that Seattle has a plan. Their GM, John Schneider, is a genius. I really like that guy. I think he's an excellent football guy, and Pete Carroll obviously knows what he's doing, but he's 70+ years old. So I don't think this is going to be a complete rebuild. They traded Russell Wilson to the Broncos and a 4th-round pick, and then they got 2 1s, 2 2s, and then a 6th-rounder, and also got 3 players. So they got substantial draft capital, and they've got some good players, some good pieces. So with the release of Bobby Wagner that we heard about yesterday, freeing up about $16 million in cap, they've got a lot of options right now. And the question is going to be, who are they going to bring in to be their quarterback? Because I don't believe they're going to roll with Drew Lock. I mean, I know they got him in the trade, but I really don't see them rolling with Drew Lock. My guess, and this is what I told you, is that they're going to roll with Drew Lock and Geno and Jacob Eason for right now. But I really think their plan is to try and trade for Deshaun Watson, and that would make a lot of sense, in my opinion, to bring Deshaun in. You've got 3 guys to battle it out while Deshaun is potentially suspended, and then once he's healthy, you throw him out there and roll with him.
It would be a perfect maneuver, and I think Deshaun with Pete Carroll would be a good place for Deshaun to go to rebuild his career. Pete knows how to deal with controversy and deal with the media. I think it's a good place for him to go. Deshaun going to a place like New York where he get eaten up by the media or wherever else he thinks he's going to go. Plus the fact that his, Flores moving out from Miami doesn't make Miami attractive anymore for him. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense for him to go there. Totally. On the flip side of that coin with Denver, I mean, when you think of how well they played last year with no quarterback, and you and I both, not to pick on Vic Fangio, but I mean, neither of us were as impressed with him as a coach. But they're going. It's going to be a tough conference now. I mean, with the Chargers getting Khalil Mack, if Khalil has something in the gas tank left, they have a great young quarterback. The Chiefs aren't going anywhere, and you got Josh McDaniel and the Raiders. Russell Wilson's not going to the easiest conference in the world either.
Yeah, well, he wasn't in the easiest conference in the world before. He played with the Rams and the 49ers and the Cardinals. And so I think he's kind of used to it. So I don't think that'll be an issue for him. The question is, can they keep that defense intact? It's kind of funny. Both these teams were 7-10 last year. And it'll be interesting to see which one, really takes a step forward, because it's not going to be easy for either one of them, considering the divisions that they play in.
True. And then we got Carson Wentz. We knew someone was going to Washington. We heard a lot of rumors who was going there. Trubisky. It ends up being Carson Wentz. Now, I mean, Carson Wentz he's gonna be one of those. It looks like he's gonna be one of those quarterbacks that a lot of teams waste their time with. Philadelphia drafted him number 1 out of North Dakota, and for a half a year before they won the Super Bowl, it looked like they were geniuses. But since then, he's been an uneven performer at best. Indianapolis trades for him, and after a year, and with his quarterback guru there to try and put his career back on track, they found out that he's a guy that you can't, you talk about Garoppolo being a game manager. Carson Wentz is the ultimate game manager too. I mean, and you got Washington, who made it to the playoffs 2 years ago, with a under 500 record. Last year, without a quarterback, a lot of injuries, you took him off, and now they bring in Carson Wentz. A lot of talent on the team, a lot of young talent. They're in a division where anybody can take it. But is Carson Wentz the answer?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a huge believer in him. I really think last year, people talked about how well he did, and I really thought that, his numbers and the team's success was solely based upon, that running back. I mean, that guy was potentially the MVP of the league, in my opinion. And I'm talking, of course, about Jonathan Taylor. I mean, that guy was the real deal. He ran for 1,800 yards, 5.5 yards a carry, 18 rushing touchdowns. I mean, that's unbelievable. He had 5 receptions, touchdowns. So you're talking about a guy who had 23 touchdowns by himself. And Wentz's numbers looked pretty good, 27-7 as far as the touchdown interception ratio, 60% passing, 3,500 yards. But, you saw the last 2 games where it came down to, these pretty good teams, focusing their defense on stopping Jonathan Taylor, and Wentz having to lead the team to victory, and he faltered bad. And my question is, would we even be talking about this right now if the Colts had won those last 2 games? Hell, if they had won the last game against the Jaguars, would they even be talking about this? I don't think so. I think if they would have won and made the playoffs, I think they would have kept Carson Wentz and rolled him out there next year. But I think they saw those last 2 games and were like, man, we're not doing this again next year. And the question is, who do they bring in now? I mean, this will be the 4th quarterback in 4 years, after, actually the 5th in 5 years, if you count back to Andrew Luck and Jacoby Brissett and then Phillip Rivers and then Carson Wentz and then insert whoever. They're definitely going to bring somebody in. The question is, do they go after one of these free agents? Do they try and get Jimmy Garoppolo? I think that's really probably where they're going to look, is they're going to try and kick the tires on Jimmy Garoppolo and see if they'll trade him. The problem is Jimmy Garoppolo just had shoulder surgery, and he's going to be out for an extended period of time. And I just don't know if that delays somebody wanting to move him. He's not going to be able to pass a physical right now. So how can you trade for him? That's the question in my mind.
Yeah, Garoppolo kind of checks all the boxes for him, because he's a good in the play action. He's good in the offense that Frank Reich wants to play. But I also heard their GM and Irsay, and I don't know if Reich came out on the company line, and they want a solution. They want to finally get somebody in there that what Andrew Luck was and was supposed to be for them. They want a solution for 5 to 10 years now. They don't want a Band-Aid. They said they've been doing the Band-Aids with Phillip Rivers. They tried Carson Wentz. They don't want strike 3 on this. So
yeah, well, that'd be great if there was someone to draft. But
that's what I mean.
Me and you've talked about it. I mean, this draft class is just not plush with quarterback prospects. I mean, I don't see a one that's ready to start right now, and may there be a future project potentially, but I just don't see anybody that's ready to come out and be a franchise guy right now. And so, one thing that I would like to ask you to get your take on, and something that I've heard, is it's not just the on the field stuff with Carson Wentz. I've heard some rumors that back when he played for the Eagles and he got injured, that he got caught cheering for them to lose. And one of the guys on the team tried to fight him because, he either saw him laughing or cheering when they lost, and that he didn't really want them to win the Super Bowl while he was out. And, that story kind of leaked from some guys that later left the team. And then there was some talk that, a lot of the guys in the locker room for the Colts didn't like him. And, I kind of believe that, just because of, it seemed like, right after the season, they were like, what are you doing? Are you bringing Carson back? Are you all in on Carson? Because that was like a question they always ask the coach. And they asked the coach, they asked the GM, and they asked the owner. And all three of them were like, no, we're not ready to say that. And I just, he wasn't that bad this year to where I would think that his play was the only reason why they wouldn't at least bring him back and then draft somebody and see if they could at least develop someone behind him. I really think there may be something to the fact that he's not the greatest locker room guy.
Well, that's the hardest thing for us. On the outside looking in, you hate to make assumptions in that behavior, but I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, a lot of these quarterbacks say the right things, but they're not the nicest guys in the world. I mean, it's the nature of the beast. They're put up on pedestals. They're given so much credit. They're given so much money and so much power that I wouldn't be shocked by it. But
it's the third team. It's his third team in 3 years.
Exactly.
If you loved him, if everybody loved the guy and just wanted to be around him, and he was just intoxicating, he wouldn't get shipped out each season.
Yeah, you usually don't get shipped out if you're a good teammate. usually you have people fighting for you. I mean, even though a lot of it's half-hearted, you hear like guys like Kittle on the 49ers, maybe not fighting for Jimmy Garoppolo, but at least saying he's our guy. We've battled with him. We've been to battles with him. We'll go with him again.
Exactly.
And then guys who leave the 49ers, you don't hear them sitting around going, Jimmy's a pretty boy. Jimmy's this, Jimmy's that. No, he seems to be one of the guys. So You're right.
As soon as any negative talk came out about Jimmy G, people rushed to back him up and be like, This guy's 33-14. This guy is a winner. This is our quarterback. And everyone talked about how great he is. And they talked about how well he got along with Trey Lance. Trey Lance said it, that he was just, that he couldn't have been a better guy to be in front of. Or be behind, as he was coming up. And then, all this stuff comes out about Wentz, potentially not coming back. And I didn't hear one person come out and be like, no, this is our guy. We love him. He's definitely come back. No one said that.
Even you don't see on the Twitter or from around the league of people going really shocked about it. You know what I mean? It's most of them, maybe there's some truth to it. Maybe he's hey, let's put it this way. Would it be shocking that Washington made a bad move?
No.
The Daniel Snyder ownership era with the Washington football team has not exactly been stellar, especially for picking quarterbacks at the right time. So,
it's been a disaster. I mean, think about last year, paying all that money to Ryan Fitzpatrick to bring him in as your, franchise quarterback. I mean, they paid him like a franchise quarterback, and then he dislocates his hip in the first game. And that was kind of a freak injury, but at the same time, the guy was pretty long in the tooth. And, he was, it's not like he was a third year guy. He was pretty old. And, I wasn't really shocked when he went down.
No, but then you had Alex Smith, who was, a decent pro quarterback. I mean, you talk about a guy who could win, and he almost loses his leg going to Washington. So, I mean, maybe it's not the best place for anybody to go. So, we'll see. The thing is now, the guy whose value is going to skyrocket out of this, I think, is Trubisky, because when you look around, he's got some warts and he's got some naysayers, but now what looks like a bad Chicago situation, he did help them get to the playoffs. He's somebody that might be the guy. That could be the guy that makes sense for Indianapolis. He's only 27, right?
Correct.
So, I mean, there's your 7-year answer, your 8-year answer right there. If Frank Reich is the quarterback guru, the quarterback whisperer, whatever you want to call it, Trubisky, that wouldn't be a bad place for him to be. He has a running attack there. He's got a good offensive line in front of him. He's a mobile quarterback.
I mean, the question is, who's really left at this point? I mean, who is still out there? And that's the $1 million question. I mean, you got Jameis Winston, you've got Mitchell Trubisky, you've got some guys that are still available, but you've got no, surefire things that are still out there. So, somebody's going to get them. I think Jameis is going to make himself a lot of money, potentially in New Orleans, because there's really no other options.
Right. And you still got the Steelers looking.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it could be anybody. So, anyways, we're going to hit a bit on the AFC East this week as we getting ready for the draft. And I looked over a few things and some intriguing things about the AFC East coming up. First of all, the salary cap. Miami has a lot of money to spend, but do they have the wisdom to spend it? And you have the Jets, who have they got 3 draft picks in the first top 40 of the draft, plus they got $38 million to spend. And then you got New England, who spent it all last year. They got like nothing left to spend. And of course, Buffalo, who's the prohibitive favorite, has nothing to spend. Let's start with the salary cap. What team do you think is in the best situation as far as space and the wisdom to use it?
Wisdom to use it is definitely the question mark. I mean, the Colts have a ton of space right now, especially with some of the guys that they've let go. They've got about $69 million left available.
You mean the Dolphins, right?
The Colts, I mean.
Oh, the Colts. I thought we were going to do AFC East.
Oh, yeah, we can. I'm just saying the Colts have a ton of space too, and that's why it was kind of interesting that they shipped out at Wentz. But yeah, the Dolphins are definitely ahead of the game. The question is between the Dolphins and the Jets, who which one of those two teams can use the space most effectively. I just have a hard time believing that either one of them is going to do anything to help themselves, because they both have made some really stupid decisions the past several years. But the Dolphins have $51.3 million in cap space. They've got a pretty decent quarterback, in my opinion, in Tua to build around, but they have to get him some weapons. I mean, this is a team that needs to get better on the offensive line. They have to bring in a running back that can help Tua. I mean, this is something me and you've talked about at length the past few years. Who's their bell cow? Who's the guy that can get 4 yards, on 3rd and 4? I mean, there's nobody on that roster that I trust to help Tua when they need, a couple yards on the ground. I mean, I really think they need to get some running backs, maybe more than one. And they also need to improve the wide receivers. I mean, they tried the William Fuller, experiment last year, and what do you know? He got hurt again. Allen Hurns missed the entire season. Isaiah Ford is always hurt. Devontae Parker was out of the lineup. Jalen Waddle, their rookie, was the best wide receiver they had. So I really think they need to bring somebody else in to help them. I like their tight end population with Mike Gesicki, who they franchise tagged, and Durham Smythe. I like both those guys, but I do think they need to improve their offensive line, and they need to really help Tua out if they want him to be their guy.
What about their defense? I mean, the defense last year was kind of, Flores, grits blitz, whatever you want to call it, all out. We're just gonna gamble on every play to try and stop you. Um, Fine if you can coach that way, but not everybody can. And that's going to be the other challenge is their defense. What do they have on defense? But they do. Should they spend their money there?
They're going to have to spend some of it. I mean, I love their secondary. I mean, Xavier Howard is a badass. Byron Jones is definitely serviceable. Jason McCourty, Eric Rowe, Brandon Jones, Devin Holland. These are all guys that can get the job done on the back end, and they've been causing a bunch of turnovers. And I love the linebackers, Roberts and Baker, and the draft pick Jalen Phillips. Christian Wilkins I like, but I think they're going to need some pass rushers. That's probably their number one need, either in free agency or in the draft. I think they need to get some pass rushers, and they need to definitely get some additional depth on the defensive line. So I think as far as linebackers and secondary go, they're okay, but they definitely need to improve the depth on the defensive line, and definitely need to get an additional pass rusher on the opposite side of Jalen Phillips.
Well, what about the Jets? The Jets, they went out and they got Wilson as their quarterback. I liked a little bit the flashes I saw of Carter at running back last year. I saw a lot in him. Wide receivers, kind of second rate, not a real tight end. Offensive line is questionable. So let's look at the Jets offense.
Yeah, the Jets, once again, if Zach Wilson is going to have any chance of success, they're going to need to improve the offensive line. I mean, Vera Tucker looked pretty solid. Becton has played okay when he's been healthy. Connor McGovern, they had Tardif who came in. Morgan Moses was kind of a stopgap guy. So they're going to definitely need to bring in some additional help on the offensive line. But, the defense is really where I think the Jets are going to need to spend their money. I mean, offensively, Elijah Moore, I really like. That was their draft pick last year out of Ole Miss. I think he came on huge for them late in the season and really showed what he can do. Corey Davis, wasn't as impressive as probably they would have liked. He missed some time with injury. I think he only played in 9 games, only had about 500 yards receiving. But Elijah Moore, the draft pick, he only played in 11 games, and he had 43 catches on 77 targets for 538 yards and 5 TDs. So I really liked him. But Jamison Crowder, who's kind of been their old reliable, they're going to probably let him go. So I think they do need to add an additional wide receiver. I'd love to see him get a tight end because I don't really love Ryan Griffin or Tyler Kroft. Let's be honest, Denzel Mims has just been a no-show ever since he got there. I mean, I loved him coming out. I have to admit, I can't really hammer the Jets too badly on that draft pick because he looked amazing coming out of Baylor. He had the size, he had the speed, he had the hands, but he sucks. So I can't really explain that one. But they've got a lot of money, and that's a good thing because they need a lot of help. And I don't think they want to see another quarterback fail as quickly as the last one. So they need to surround this guy with some talent. Luckily, I like Elijah Moore. I like the running back, Michael Carter, who you mentioned. He seemed to really get better as the season went along. And if they can, add an additional wideout, get a tight end who can do anything, and beef up that offensive line, maybe Zach Wilson has a chance. I mean, he showed some flashes. I've got to admit, I wasn't really sold on him as a quarterback coming out. But, with Mike White behind him, I think you've got somebody kind of pushing him. And, if Zach fails, you go with Mike White and then you draft somebody else. So I think it's a decent situation, at least in the quarterback room. And if Zach can get some help, I think he's got a chance.
One free agent I want to talk to you about, and it's not a big free agent for the Jets, but a guy who potentially can go somewhere. Braxton Berrios. I mean, when you talk about wide receiver, he's a nice little wide receiver, but also a very good return guy. And I mean, people don't always talk about return, But when you have a guy who's gutsy enough to field the punt, so you're not always starting inside your 10-yard line. And we broke off some pretty big time returns this year. Not that he's going to get touchdowns every year, but I think he might be worth them at least offering him something to stick around, because I don't think a lot of people are going to go for him, but I think he kind of fits a nice little spot for them in an inexpensive kind of solution till maybe something better comes along.
I agree 100%. Not only was he one of their most reliable wide receivers, which was kind of surprising, but he was a tremendous returner. I mean, he had a 102-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. He had almost 1,000 kickoff return yardage. He also returned punts and averaged about 14 yards of return there. So I really love him on special teams. And then on, as a wide receiver, he wasn't bad either. I think he finished with around 400 yards and 2 touchdowns, almost 10 yards a catch average. That was about the same as everybody else on their team. So I agree with you. I think that's a guy they should lock up because his price tag's not that high and they got plenty of cash.
Yeah. Let's go up the coast a little bit to the Patriots, who we both loved how fast they kind of turned it around. I got to admit, I was rooting for him to go a little bit further than they did, just to relieve the shadow of Mr. Brady. They seem like they've got their quarterback. They seem like but they spent a lot of capital, and they're not exactly the youngest team around, are they?
No, I mean they've got a lot of guys that are free agents also. I mean, that's one thing that you have to realize. Devin McCourty not getting any younger. He's a free agent. Trent Brown, Dante Hightower. They already released Kyle Van Noy. J.C. Jackson is the biggest one. I kind of thought he would get franchise tagged. So hopefully they're working out a deal with J.C. Jackson. I think that's the one guy they cannot lose. In my opinion, he is the one guy on their defense that they have to bring back because, they let Gilmore walk, which was fine because you had J.C. Jackson. But I don't think you can let Stephon Gilmore, the former defensive player of the year, walk out of town and then let the next guy, J.C. Jackson, the next shutdown corner you got, walk out of town the year after. I think they need to pay him. I think they need to work out a long-term deal, and I think that's what they're potentially doing since they didn't tag him.
Well, I think you're totally right. When you think about the philosophy of Bill Belichick defense, take away your best wide receiver weapon. He did it with Ty Law. He did it with Asante Samuel. He did it when over the years, he's always had somebody out there that could take away the quarterback's favorite target. And it's so ingrained into what they like to do on defense to make you be uncomfortable and go away from the things that make you happy as a quarterback. So I totally agree with you. He's the biggest signing they got to come up with.
Yeah, I think they need to get him locked up. I think they need to bring in another wideout. I liked Kendrick Bourne. He came on pretty strong towards the end of the year. Nelson Aguilar looked pretty good, but I think at this point we need to admit N'Keal Harry's a bust. I mean, that's why they don't draft wide receivers in the first round, because it never works out for them. And N'Keal Harry sucks. I mean, the guy can't catch a cold. I don't understand why they haven't cut him already. I just think he's a waste of a roster spot. But Jacoby Myers, Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, those are 3 guys you can work with. And then if you can bring in somebody else that can help those 3 guys, I think you're in business. And let's be honest, man, they hit a home run with that quarterback. How fast they got that guy going. I mean, me and you both last year, let's be honest, when they were like, we're dusting Cam Newton 2 days before the season and we're rolling with this guy, me and you both were like, what the hell is going on? And I couldn't believe it. I understood that this was their guy, that they felt strongly about him. I heard all offseason that they liked him, that they thought that he understood the system and that he was progressing. But I was like, why would you not just keep Cam? You already paid him and let him start the season. But obviously Bill Belichick knows more about football, in in his butt than I know in my whole body. So, he knew what he was doing, and it worked out tremendously for him. So I think they've definitely got some work to do on that defense, and they need to bring in a wideout. But let's be honest, man, they did great last year in the offseason, so I'm not really worried about this offseason either.
Well, the other thing is that, that they're going to have to address is Josh McDaniel leaving. And I didn't hear anything, I heard rumors. Is Bill O'Brien still around free out there, or is he locked up in Alabama still?
I believe he's still in Alabama. And I've heard that what I've heard is that Bill Belichick is potentially going to be calling the plays himself. And, if anyone can do it, it's him. But O'Brien is still currently the offensive coordinator and the quarterbacks coach at Alabama. And I don't think from what I've heard, from NFL reporters and from all the outlets that I have researched, they're not thinking about bringing it back.
Okay. Now we'll go up to the Western New York, where Buffalo is now the 2-time defending champions of this division. Disappointing ending to their season and one of the classic games of all time. It wasn't their fault. It was just the fact of the matter. Kansas City had the ball last. What a classic game that was. They did everything they were supposed to do this year. Really recovered from that disappointing loss to New England when they looked so bad on that stormy Monday night, and everybody was saying that that now the Patriots are going to leapfrog over them. Not a lot of holes. The one guy I want to bring up right now that I hear they're thinking about moving on from, and I mean I love this guy because he just checks a lot of boxes. Cole Beasley, I hear, could be a good buy from Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what the plan is with Cole, to be honest with you, but I think they can handle, life without him. I mean, he's a good little slot guy, but let's be honest, man. Gabriel Davis really, really came on strong last year. I mean, this is a guy that what he scored 4 touchdowns in one game.
Yeah.
I mean, this dude just proved that the Bills are doing things the right way. They're drafting their guys. They're developing them, and they're turning them into stars. And, they've already got Stephon Diggs on one side. They've got Gabriel Davis on the other. Isaiah McKenzie played well at times. Do I think that Cole Beasley's a good player? Do I think he would help them? Yes. But if they moved on from him, I think, they would survive.
Mm-hmm.
But Emmanuel Sanders is a free agent. So do they bring him back? I don't know. But I think they've definitely got some decisions to make in that regard. But I think their cap situation is not terrible. But they definitely need to clear some space if they're going to be able to sign anybody to try and bolster their position and try and make a Super Bowl run. They're not in a negative situation right now, but they don't have a ton of money to spend.
How about the defensive side of the ball for them?
Yeah, I mean, that defense was solid. I know they had trouble stopping Patrick Mahomes there, but, they were the number one defense going through. So Tre'Davious White, I love that guy. He's a great corner. And then their 2 safeties are my favorite, Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. I love both those guys. Micah Hyde's getting pretty long in the tooth, but he showed last year he can still play. And then they've got, Gregory Rousseau, who they drafted out of Miami, AJ Epinesa. Jerry Hughes is a free agent, but they also have Mario Addison and then Boogie Basham, who they drafted last year. So I think they'll probably end up not signing Jerry Hughes and rolling with the young guys. And then they've still got Ed Oliver and Harrison Phillips in the inside who can get it done. But I think they'll probably add in the draft an additional defensive lineman for depth. And then potentially, another secondary player just to, learn from these guys and add depth in the secondary as well.
They too lost their offensive coordinator, Daboll, to my team, the Giants. He has been, Allen's big brother since he got to Buffalo. But I think Allen is mature enough, and I think he knows his system well enough, and I don't think it's going to be have any kind of real adverse effect on him. What do you think?
Well, they promoted from within. Josh Allen. They asked him what he thought and talked to him extensively about the decision to potentially move up Ken Dorsey. Let's be honest, man. Ken Dorsey was a hell of a quarterback in college at Miami.
Yeah, he was.
National championship winning quarterback and just a really cerebral guy. So I think if anybody can keep continuity going within that offense, it's Ken Dorsey. So I don't think, obviously I like A-Ball, and I think he's going to do a good job for the Giants, but I think the Bills will be okay.
So overall, this division, when you look at it, what kind of a rating would you give this division overall? The 4 teams there, would you call it a B, a solid C? You couldn't give it an A because when you're comparing it to, I would say, the AFC West or the AFC North. But what would you say about this division?
I'd give them a B-. I mean, you got the Bills, which are a Super Bowl contending team, a game away from making the big dance. And, I think they've got a shot to go right back where they were. I mean, I don't see anything on this list of free agents that freaks me out from the Bills' perspective. And I think that, they obviously, Billy Beane knows what he's doing as a general manager. He's one of my favorite general managers in all of the NFL, to be honest with you. He doesn't talk a lot of shit. He doesn't act like he's the greatest in the world, but he just gets he gets the job done. And I really like him. So I think the Bills are right where they want to be. I think they're knocking on the door of a Super Bowl championship. And then the Patriots are right back in the fold. So with those 2 teams, I think you have to keep them in the B- range, and you only have the minus because you have the Jets. The Dolphins, are kind of a question mark just because you don't know what they're going to do this offseason with all that money. They have a brand new coach, and none of us really know what that guy's going to be able to do. That guy's kind of a weird dude. I mean, I guess he could work out like Shanahan and like obviously the coach in the Rams, and be able to be a young guy that gets it done. But he could also not know what he's doing. So I think the question mark of the Dolphins with the new coach, and then obviously the Jets, that's the one thing that kind of points this division downward.
Yeah, definitely. Before we sign off tonight, I wanted to see any you're the NBA guy. This NBA year seems to be, when you think about the last couple of years, it's flat. I'm not the biggest NBA guy, so I'll be the first one to tell you about it. But the fact of the matter is, you are an NBA fan. When you look at the NBA this year, I don't get the buzz it seems like no one, it's I don't know, like they're sleepwalking through the regular season. What is your opinion about what's going on in the NBA right now?
Well, I mean, it's it hit a little bit of a lull there right before the All-Star break, and I think it'll pick up. I think people will start getting into it now that Super Bowl is over. Now that once the draft concludes and all that, I think people will start turning their eyes a little bit more towards the NBA. It's weird because some of these teams are still kind of feeling themselves out. You got the Sixers, who just added James Harden, and that's a big time piece for them. They were kind of playing without one of their starters and Ben Simmons, who was sitting out.
Yeah.
And so, that was kind of a team that was kind of, playing without one of their dudes. The Celtics. The Cavaliers have kind of been the surprise team, but they're kind of falling off now. They're dealing with some injuries, and they've, not been as successful as of late. But the Miami Heat are playing great basketball. They're 44-23. I think right now they're 23-8 at home. And I really like what I'm seeing out of the Heat, to be honest with you. And, that Eastern division is kind of fun to watch because you've got the Heat, you got the Bucks, and you got the Sixers. And I think all three of those teams are going to be in the thick of it come the end of the year. And then, as far as the play-in situation goes, you've got the Hawks who, remember last year, the Hawks, came out of nowhere and, dominated the playoffs. And right now they're in 10th place. So they've kind of been a disappointment, but I wouldn't write them off yet. And, the Nets, if they can get anything out of Ben Simmons, could potentially climb out of that 8th spot. So the East is kind of weird, but the West, is all about the Phoenix Suns right now. They're the one team in the NBA that's already clinched a playoff spot. They're 53-13 and 28-7 at home, 25-6 on the road. And, they survived several weeks without their leader, Chris Paul. So the Suns are probably the best team in the West, I think, and they've solidified that. The team that's kind of surprised everybody is the Memphis Grizzlies. John Morant has just berserk, dude.
He's so good. He is. I mean, if he would have been the answer to the Knicks' prayers if they could have ever found a way to get a hold of him.
Yeah,
he was just, or probably any team's prayers. I mean, he is just so good. And the problem is that he's playing down in Memphis where nobody really pays attention outside of the real NBA fans. He's somebody that could become the face of the NBA. The one thing I do, as somebody's in, like I said, an outsider looking in, there's no real rivalry. Like you used to have the Lakers and the Celtics, and then you had the Bulls and the Pistons, and then you had the Bulls and the Knicks, and then you had, there was a centerpiece rivalry that was going on in the league. It seemed at all times, and there doesn't seem to be that one that everybody goes, okay, it's Sunday, those two teams are playing. I'm not going to go golfing. I'm going to watch that game, or I'm going to go golfing early, so I'm home to watch that. They really seem to need, in my estimation, a rivalry.
Yeah, well, they've kind of done that to themselves. I mean, think about it. No one plays on the same team anymore for more than like a year or two. And that's what we saw, back in the heyday. And that's what I call it because that's what it was, when you had the Bad Boys and the Pistons and you had Joe Dumars and you had Isaiah Thomas and you had John Sally and you had, Rick Mahorn and Bill Laimbeer. I mean, they had the same core of guys around for 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
The Bulls, they had Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan, and then they built kind of around that. And then, the Celtics, they had Larry Bird and Dennis Johnson and the Chief, Robert Parrish and Kevin McHale. And, they had these guys that were mainstays that you could count on. And so there were these rivalries that developed because these guys played against each other and they hated each other. And they, and now, these guys, they don't really hate each other because they're always looking for their next
way to play together.
Like, oh, that guy's good. Oh, let's go here next year. I'll meet you in St. Louis.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
It's just that's the one thing where the rivalries have definitely kind of gone away because nobody's on the same team, or no two guys are on the same team anymore for more than a couple of years, and I think that's really kind of hurt the NBA as a whole, and I think it's definitely hurt the rivalries.
You can even say that about college basketball. I mean, when you look at North Carolina and Duke, there's still a hatred there, and there's a definite hatred, but you don't have the guys playing against each other for 3 and 4 years and building up that real grudge match that is what drives you to do it. That's why, in football, at least they're going to be there 3 years pounding on each other, so they do get a hatred for the other team.
Yeah, I mean, you're missing the Leitners and you're missing the Tyler Hansboroughs and those guys that you're just like, how is that guy not graduated yet? That's not the norm in college basketball anymore. But that's what they're doing with this one and done crap. I mean, if a guy's good enough to go to the NBA out of high school, let him go. I mean, why you trap somebody for a year? And make them go somewhere.
It's such a joke. Ridiculous. It's a joke. They're not going to class. They're not even a part of their student body. They're not. They don't have to go to class. They go to take some introductory courses just to get to January, and then they can stop going to school because their grades aren't going to be out until after the NCAA tournament's over with. Let's be serious. It's a ridiculous thing. And It's just to, I guess, stir some interest on the campus when you can show off a shiny pet or a shiny superstar for 3 months. I guess. I don't know.
I mean, think about Kentucky over the last, 10, 15 years. I mean, they never even have a senior night because even if they have a guy that has been on the team, doesn't get drafted after a year, he transfers because he knows that they've got 5 or 6 new one and doneers coming the next year. So senior night's like, crickets chirping because there's nobody out there to hand a jersey to because no one's been there for 4 years. And it's sad in my opinion because, as a guy that, has been a Duke fan my whole life and has also, lived in Tennessee here for a while and come to love going to Tennessee basketball games. You used to really develop a bond.
Oh yeah,
kids. You go meet them after the games. You get to hear their interviews over and over again, and you come to form a bond with these guys. And now, college basketball every year you have to go to the first couple games and figure out who the hell everybody is because everybody transfers and everybody ones and dones it, and it's a brand new roster every season.
Well, I mean, just not to belabor the point, but I mean, when you looked at Coach K's night, how many of those guys that were 4-year players at Duke came back to celebrate with him, and they'd been with him through wars of 4 years and championships and heartbreaks and also getting to the top of the mountain, and those are times that they'll never share with their family, or that became their extended family. It was a beautiful thing to watch. And we're not going to see that again. So, anyways, there's some more basketball to watch tonight. What is going on the man coverage on Sunday this week?
Sunday, we are going to be live 11 a.m. Eastern, usual time slot. We're going to be talking the quarterback battles going on. Spring practice is kicking off in college football right now. So I know it's not a huge topic on this show, but we're going to be banging in to the college football spring practice getting going. We're going to talk about the big quarterback battles that are starting to ignite in the spring practices, who's going to win them, who's battling, all that kind of thing. And then we're also going to have a guest, Andre Griffin, coach, played running back at Ohio State, has been coaching over a decade now in college. Football, was also a head high school coach, and is also the son of 2-time Heisman Trophy winner Archie Griffin. So we're going to have Andre on the show and talk to him about his playing days and also, his coaching days, which he's been doing here recently. All
right, and we're going to sign off now. And remember, if you're looking to play trivia in the Norwalk area, I appear every Wednesday night at the Bank House down on River Street in Norwalk. So come in and introduce yourself and play a little trivia with me. We'll have some fun that night. So we have that going on, and we will be back next week, and we'll break down the AFC North next week, what we think is going on, what they should be looking for in the draft, and also it'll be the first day of the NCAA tournament, so we'll have a lot of basketball to talk about that night too. Nate, have yourself a great weekend, and I will see you next week.
All right, buddy. Sounds good. Thanks for your time.
Have a good night, everybody.
All right, adios.